I came for the first interview with Barbara Chambers and Kathy Owen, I think maybe Liz Kaplan. I returned for a second interview. I think that was with teachers, faculty and staff. And then I came back for a third interview, which was quite something that I probably never lived through before. I think there were about 40, at least 40 parents, teachers. There's a boardroom. I think 16 people sat around the boardroom, a board table, and then there were additional 2 rows of people. And there was this young lady from Trenton, New Jersey going, "Oh, what is this?
Right.
Who is it? What are these folks all about?" But just understanding 2 things. There was a great love for the director who was dying of cancer, and also a love for this community that they built after the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., a time that they wanted to bring healing to the racial tension that was growing in the community. So I understood, after leaving there, interviewing, I understood better what they were looking for, and they wanted somebody to step into the shoes of Barbara Chambers and really take care of the program.
Susie, how did you get there?
I was shopping at Safeway with my baby Zafra, who was 3 years old, and in the shopping cart when Janet Wakala happened to be in front of me in the line. Janet ended up working in the office at Columbia Road. I don't know if she did then, but there must have been something about Zafra and I that made her say, "Columbia Road Children's Center is where you belong." So I was like, good. And I went and enrolled Zafra, and Zafra was my first child. She'd never been in any kind of a setting before. This setting totally fit my aesthetic. It was fun, and the staff was wonderful, and they thought Zafra was wonderful. So, and the potluck dinners on Friday night were wonderful, so I was just happy to send Zafra there. When Zafra left there, it was not so good for her, but I was working at a bank then that hated me. They hated me. They hated the way I smelled, they hated the way I looked, they hated the way I balanced the books, or whatever you call it at the end of the day in a bank. And I cried every day when I left, literally cried. People in the neighborhood would say, "She sure has a hard way to go." And Judy Byron, a friend of ours, called and said, "Susie, there's a white opening at Columbia Road Children's Center." And I drove to Columbia Road Children's Center and walked in the door. And the staff said, "Why are you here, Susie?" Because Zafra had gone on to another school. And I said, "I'm here for the white opening." And they said, "Don't call it that, but there's a teaching assistant opening with Faye Allen in the 4-year-old class." And I was like, "Cool." And then I went, and I got the job. I don't even remember being interviewed. The opposite of Paulette, I don't think anybody interviewed me at all. I don't think so. I think I just got the job because
You were white.
I was white.
And they liked how you smelled.
And my daughter went there. I was part of the community. I was part of the community. I don't remember any interview at all. And I went and started working with Faye, and Carlos was in the classroom. So it was Faye, Carlos, who's a Bolivian musician, and myself. And it was the most lovely teaching imaginable. So I was just always happy.
Faye, how did you get there?
I was looking for a full-time job because the job I had with the recreation department only was during the school year. It wasn't extended, so I had those summer months free. And working in a program such as Columbia Road Children's Center would be all year. And a friend of mine said they're interviewing, so I should try. And of course, yes, when I went, I was somewhat like, because there was a whole round table of persons interviewing. So you had teachers, Carlos was already there and was going to be my teacher's aide. So he was part of the interviewing team and parents and what have you, and they interviewed me. And I remember Carlos saying, "That's a real teacher," right? And he didn't know how I would fit in the room being a real teacher, because in that particular room, I think they had most artists in the room. So here comes a real teacher who's going to, so, but I did get the job, and of course it was a great experience. And Carlos figured out that it was okay to be with a real teacher. Mm-hmm. We had a good time.
Paulette, was it difficult to supervise these two?
Yes.
Not at all. Actually, what
Yes.
made the job at Columbia Road Children's Center just a lovable experience, because I trust what was going on in the classrooms. I trust the folks who managed the children, who worked the curriculum with and for the children. So I think it was relatively an easy job in that sense, and because of their personalities, it was also easy to work with them. So yeah, I love the experience there. I think what was difficult was when they left to pursue other things. You know, so it was like, you left me here alone. You know, and of course through the years we hired on new people who were further away from the history of the school and why we operated the way we did. So that became more of a challenge once these ladies left the school.
Can you all talk a little bit about the history of the school?
Yeah, why was it founded?
Sure.
Yeah, I found you guys there, so we'll talk about that.
It was founded right after the assassination, the murder of Dr. Martin Luther King and the riots. So as I know the history, a group of parents, many in Cleveland Park, but wanted their children to have a healing experience where children of diverse backgrounds and races and ethnicities came together to learn so that they would know and understand each other. And that was the thinking. So I think it's real important because, as I understand it, parents who had more wealth financed the school to a way so that parents who didn't have that kind of income could have their children attend Columbia Road Children's Center too. And so there was that, the white opening had to do with the conscious ratio of 1/3 white, 1/3 African American, 1/3 Latino.
And different socioeconomic groupings. So if a person had one child and could possibly give a scholarship to a second child, that's what happened. So kids from different socioeconomic groupings could also be there.
Was there any public funding? Was there any government funding?
I think early years there probably was less of it and became more of it as the issue of a multicultural, different kind of school community changed. As the community changed as well, I think we saw I wouldn't call it white flight because they were already in their communities, but I think as their children moved away from the school, I don't think people came back in the same numbers. And, as the imbalance, I guess I would feel comfortable in saying, as the balance of racial groups changed, we had more Hispanic, Latinos, more blacks, and fewer whites, and we kept seeing that change. Because again, people want to feel like they're putting their children in a program that represents them, that looks like them. And as we were losing funding, I would say, that would also change in the kind of teachers that you would attract as well. So,
Peas and rice and tortillas and all, you know,
Everything.
everything. I mean,
Name it, we did.
plantains and
Plantains.
In addition to spaghetti and meatballs
Yeah.
and chicken and things like that.
Yeah.
Again, that was trying to appeal to the palates of young children and trying out various foods that their classmate
Did it work?
also enjoy.
Oh,
it
yes.
did.
It
And
worked.
it did work. The kids loved vegetables. I mean, you know, loved them, and there was always
Yeah.
vegetables, and kids did. And plus, the community thing is true that it was a community. So often, at least once a month, but probably more than once a month, there would be a gathering of the whole community around food in the evening. You know, so the parents would be there and. There'd be music and there'd be food.
And if it was potluck, that was another opportunity
Yes.
to try different kinds of foods.
It was often potluck and the food was incredible. I mean, yummy, so.
How about the story you told about the rabbit's house? Tell me
Oh,
that.
well, talking about the stories and how we use it. It's one story that we talked about was Who's in Rabbit's House, and it's supposed to be an African tale, but it is the story is about a caterpillar being in the rabbit's house, and the rabbit thought it was a lion or something bigger, and because the noises this thing made
Disguised his voice.
yes would make them think so yes, I could read the story with the emphasis in but Susie at the end of the year, because the kids love this story, so we read it over and over and over, but at the end of the year what happened, Susie created, masks and paper plate masks and what have you, and the kids could act out the story, and for parents, and Carlos put music to it. So it was things like that. This is an African tale that we fixed and joined and made it fun for everybody, and the whole school, because end of the year we used to have put on a show, or for better word, for
I think
more
even
than
a few times a year we would do
put
it.
on for families and friends of families. So parents brought their friends to see their kids perform. Who doesn't like to see kids perform? All the parents love. So they would come in and they would do all these dances, all these what Carlos would play. And other people. It wasn't just Carlos.
Right.
There were other people from the community that played music, and Carlos would have his little band together, and they would sing and dance and.
But in addition to that, in terms of thinking about the curriculum in the community, that there was, the fire department, the post office, restaurants, but wherever we could visit with children in the community. You would see Columbia Road children walking through the streets, which again, for a child who doesn't live in that community, you can see how your neighbor Ricardo, this is his community, so let's walk and see what it looks like over here. And it's
And come back and do a experience chart.
what you saw, what you heard.
What did you see? What did you hear? And then we would write it, put the child's name next to it. So that's their first way of starting to read. So they could read what somebody else wrote for them, but they had their little experience charts going, had their little books ready. And so it was just blending everything in. It's not just what's in the book, but blending it all in. And it worked. It worked really well.
It did. I can say that when Zafra went on to other schools that were not, I didn't send her to DC public schools because I was afraid of that, given who I was. And those other schools were not as welcoming. They were alternative schools, but they were not as nourishing and welcoming.
Where was your school located? Where was Columbia Road Children's Center?
1470 Irving Street, Northwest.
And what was that? That wasn't
Wilson
that.
Center.
which had been a Presbyterian
Presbyterian
church.
church.
Yeah.
Presbyterian Church,
Yeah.
I think eventually sold it to,
Charter.
as, for $1. For
Yeah.
years, we had been trying to get the property, but they were holding on to it, but.
But the
years
Wilson
later-
Center is where, many leftist groups worked, had offices.
Was that the same building you were in?
Yeah,
Yes.
Joe, Merritt was there, Phil Wheaton's.
Middle East Reports.
Health center was there, a women's health center. I mean, there were a number of things going on in terms, again, taking care of the community, being supportive to the community, and the broader community, I should say.
Yeah.
How many children were there?
When I came to the school, I think we were about 52, 55, something like that. I think now they're 250.
Yeah,
Wow.
and we grew a lot because our room ended up with 24 children. And when we first started, we had like 18. And then, and everybody grew. But basically we grew from bottom up because when we had 24, we had early fours and then fours. So we started to have, like, because of the developmental ages, we had some split things that we had to do. But yeah, we grew.
How many
quite
grades did you go
fast.
up?
Just kindergarten.
Up to kindergarten.
Through kindergarten,
Yes,
not first grade though.
not
No.
first grade.
So it was preschool.
Yeah, yeah.
Let me ask, nowadays there's a lot of right-wing criticism about intentional diversity. You were all, I'm asking, but you all seem to have felt that it was easy to accommodate a principle of racial, ethnic, economic diversity. I'm asking, did it ever feel strained, or did it just feel like, well, it's about damn time?
It felt very natural to children.
Yeah.
Very, and it felt natural to me. It felt like who I was and what I wanted, so, for my children and for myself, so.
I don't know.
I don't remember.
But Columbia Road Children's Center was pretty special for that reason. You walked in, and even though when I first went, I was like, okay, let's see what happens here. But you walk in and you were welcomed. There wasn't I didn't feel anybody that says, why is this person here? Or it's you just walked in and you were welcome. It was basically, what gift do you bring us? And so you walk in and you share your gifts, and you supported each other, and you did what you needed to do. And as Paulette says, you could trust and respect people, and it worked. I mean, my younger child was already in maybe second or third grade at the time, and would be at Barbara Chambers quite often.
After school.
After school he would, because he went to neighborhood public school, so he could walk to Barbara Chambers after school. And with him or with other staff, kids that walked there after school, they became part of that, to read stories to a child, to act out something, to play a game with a child. It taught them a whole lot of responsibility, that here are some younger children that we could read a story to. You didn't come here to just run around and make. And
it was very natural to them.
It was very
They
natural.
come in after school and they hung out. That was their place. They'd help
Yes.
out. They play with the children on the playground, read stories. It was like they grew up there and they came back. They had their early childhood experience and they came back. Or they came after school, whatever. They were just part of that community.
I would also like to say that Paulette was an incredible administrator.
Yeah.
That when I got the job, people around the city were kind of hoping that I would unionize daycare workers. And probably by the third staff meeting, I just looked at everybody because she really was so skilled at helping us understand how to communicate as a group, and or just how to communicate with each other and how to be amicable and how people have quirks and how to respect those quirks. She was so good at that, and I was learning so much. It was so exciting that I kind of remember standing up and saying, I was supposed to unionize us, but there is nothing wrong with this administration, so I won't be leading the union struggle here.
Do you remember that, Paulette?
Yes, I do. I remember well. Yes.
Did you know there was an effort to unionize?
Yeah, I did. I had an administrative assistant who we love dearly. She is no longer with us, but she was about workers' rights.
Oh, yes.
You know, and wanting to make sure that things were in place for everyone. So.
She's the one that brought me there, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I want to ask you a question that you referred to before is how did the kids from Columbia Road School compare with other kids in the metropolitan area? You said you visited different schools and tried to...
Well, when we went out, we went out looking to see, did our children meet the grades, or were we preparing them, because we saw ourselves as a bit different from most, in that we weren't sitting at the table and reading and writing and thing. We saw what we did. We did most of what we did in play and stuff. Yet we had one kid I can remember that left us reading in 3 languages. I'll never forget her. She because she had a child care person that was Spanish speaking. I think her mom spoke French, and then English in the classroom. And anything she read in English, she also read in French and Spanish. So but we wanted to anyway be sure that our kids were prepared when they left us at kindergarten. Were they ready for first grade? Were they ready to move on? Because now they will have to sit still in a chair or a bench or what have you. But when we went out and looked, and Marcel de Govaya started that looking. And when we went out and looked, we saw that we were way above. Because our kids were reading at 4 years old. Mm-hmm. And they were well prepared. And if they knew, Marcel was bent on them knowing, when you talk about vegetables, it's not just broccoli but what happened to the greens, colored greens? So the wide range, they knew a banister is a banister, but in some houses we don't have banisters. And she used to say that, well, what are the tests? Because, when they left and went out, they had some tests they had to do. And I'll never forget Marcel saying, that test says, what do you cover with when it rains? Now, some of our children cover with plastic bags and newspaper. Mm-hmm. So now we need to bring some raincoats and stuff in here, and we need to hang it up. And let all the kids know that you can cover with newspaper and plastic bags, but you can also cover with rain caps and raincoats and umbrellas. So that was what you looked at. So they were well prepared. They were reading. They knew all they needed to know to be in first grade and beyond. So it worked just fine. And as Paulette just said, we were play-based. Mm-hmm. So that worried Marcel for a little bit there. So are we playing too much here? But they were prepared and beyond.
Will you tell us more about Marcel?
Marcel. Marcel was a teacher, and she
Grew up in the British system.
She grew up in the British
was from
system.
Trinidad.
From Trinidad, and grew up in the British system, and really felt like, what happened? Are we playing too much? Do we need to sit down and we need to listen, and do we have to follow everything to the book? But yes, she could play, and she learned how, and so that's why she did that. It was important for her to go out and do that research, so she could be sure that she was preparing her children, because she was the kindergarten teacher. So she was going to make sure they were prepared when they left her room. But they were more than prepared by the time they got to her room. So
Right.
it wasn't so hard. But yeah, so we were ready.
Right.
Do you have any favorite memories of the school? Any favorite incidents?
I wouldn't say necessarily favorite, but I certainly saw how the children enjoy the musical environment. That gathering time was real important. You know, our administrative assistant was from West Virginia, and she had such a wonderful twang. And so she would bring songs, Carla would bring songs, and then there you have your traditional early childhood songs. But the whole gathering time, you could feel the joy and the energy from children and teachers.
Was that every day?
Did we go down and sing every day, or sometimes during the week?
I think it was maybe once a week that we all did together.
Yeah,
but
what
we
happened
did
in
love
every classroom, but then when we get
Yeah.
together as a full community, you just sort of felt the strength and the power and the voices when we all bellowed
Yeah.
together. So,
Do you remember any songs? Can we go out on a song?
if I can remember any.
that. Feliz Navidad.
No, it wouldn't be that one.
That's the one I can remember so clearly.
Freight Train was one of the
Yes.
Yes, that
Do you
was
remember that song?
Janet's
Freight train going so fast.
Right.
But that was one of the favorites.
Paulette is the singer.
I wish I knew, remember the word.
I don't
lyrics.
care what train I'm on.
So don't tell what train I'm on so they won't know
No,
where
where
I'm
I'm
bound.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes. I'm sorry, you know, you're
No,
talking
I
ladies in their
can't
70s, so well into their 70s. Forget these
That was
things.
Janet's song.
Yeah, that was Janet's
That was
song.
Janet's song.
I have a question. Can you talk a little bit about your graduates of the school? Not all of them, there must be hundreds, but what some of the kids that went through the school did. Your daughter, other people's kids, you know?
Well, my daughter is working for the Justice Department, and she travels for her job. She's working on prisoner reentry programs for the Justice Department, but she also loves to travel. She lives to travel the world. Sala Patterson married an Italian man who ran a resort in Brazil, and she travels to Africa. She works out of Rome and Paris half the time, so she's
She's an international.
She's an
attorney.
internationalist. Joseph F. Hannon is clearly an internationalist. He lives he's
Works all over the world.
all over the world.
On good
so-
lefty things.
Yeah, good lefty things. But Asia, Australia, South America, Canada. So,
There are a lot. We had a lot of lawyers out of our groups, doctors. They all are doing well. They all are international people.
And civic-minded.
Civic-minded.
That's what's
The
important.
The young lady that I said was reading in 3 languages, she's an international lawyer also. And so she had just moved back. She was named something. I can't remember, so I can't keep up. And just moved back to the area recently. So many of the kids that have kept up with us, or we have kept up with, mostly they kept up with us, are doing well, and they are still that kind of a person that welcomes other people in, and you know. So it's
So his brother is an ESOL teacher in Montgomery County, but he got a law degree and then realized that he's happier teaching.
Well, the wrap-up question here is, how did this experience that you all had at Columbia Road School affect the rest of your life? Do you feel like you've changed because of it? Are you more the person you were because of it? Are you?
I would say for me personally, coming from leaving New Jersey and coming to Washington in itself was a huge move. Coming into the school where you establish and maintain relationships across the board, I think help make the person that you are, or bring it out more. I would say when I moved here, I was probably more on the shy side as an administrator. I think Columbia Road Children's Center helped me to grow and being more confident around the education of young children, more available to allow people, as Faye would say, let them do their thing. So I would say, in that regard, I think it really helped to grow me.
You know, for me, coming from the West Indies, coming from Jamaica in particular, at that point in time, I had no idea what this social atmosphere here was. It was just all new to me, very new.
When did you move here? What year?
66. And so it was all new and it was just different. So there was a lot for me to learn. And I think that it was a good thing for me to be at Columbia Road, because had I not had Columbia Road's experience, I would be thinking of the United States a lot differently. The melting pot at Columbia Road helped me to know that it's okay. It's okay. You can really fit into a melting pot here in the United States. You know, I'm coming from a melting pot home. It was only money that made a difference where I come from. So it was to come and hear the stories and read the stories would have been so different. It's the time when universities people are sitting in and doing this and doing that when I came. So, and I thought at the time when I came, how can people in university get all those rights to be sitting in like that and doing this and changing that? So it was a whole different world for me. So it was good to go to Columbia Road and see that it's okay. It's okay, and it's okay to be part.
Broadens your horizon.
Yeah.
Broadens your experience greatly.
Right.
Yeah.
And I came from the civil rights movement back to DC, so as I became a parent, it was the most natural place for me to be. It was the most comfortable place to be. And maybe because I had never had another child and put another child in it, I thought that's what education should be. You know, I might have taken it for granted then that but as years went on, I really saw what a treasure. But the relationships there that I had with the staff.
Sorry, Susie. Oh,
That's
good.
okay. Relationships with the staff have just fed me for my whole life. They really have.
And you've been good friends because of that.
Oh, yes. We can handle it.
Right.
It is.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't think I would have become a teacher if I hadn't had such a good experience. And becoming a teacher enabled me to get my daughters through college, so.
Well, thank you. In other conversations, we'll be talking to some of the graduates of Columbia Road School, correct?
Yes.
Yes.